right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Bears-Jaguars game from Sunday. We'll talk about Caleb Williams' performance and how, the Bears as a team are heading in the right direction. They've been playing pretty well these last couple weeks. I know you can you could definitely make the argument, well, look at the competition. They went up against the Panthers and the Jaguars, two of the worst teams in football. But, I think you still got to, take it into account to a certain extent. The Bears are running the football better. Caleb Williams, again, is looking better because of that. You have a more balanced attack. And if you look at the NFC North as a whole, it's the best division in football right now. I know I've talked about it already, but really is looking like the best division in football. Every team is over 500. We've only seen one matchup against involving these two teams between the Vikings and the Packers, and that turned out to be a really good game, even though, it was like a tale of two halves. The Vikings dominated the first half, Packers dominated the second half. But on Sunday, we are getting, again, one of the better matchups of the weekend, Lions against the Vikings in Minnesota. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, the Bears, they have really started to get it going. You would like to see, again, it against better competition. But again, you want to, you're still going to take it into account. But these are Caleb Williams' stats from Sunday. So 4 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. Over 200 yards passing. A couple times he hit Cole Kmet. Keenan Allen had 2 touchdowns. That was one thing that they said. They wanted to get Keenan Allen going, and they got him going in this game. And this is what I talked about before the season. I love the Bears skill position players, and I just said, you know what, this team, maybe they don't make the playoffs, but I do expect them to get better as the season goes along. And maybe, they could make the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me right now if every team in this division made the playoffs, because the NFC is not very good. I had at least 2 teams from the division making the playoffs. I had the Lions and the Packers. But the Vikings right now are 5-0. The Bears are 4-2. Who's to say all 4 of them can't make the playoffs? Right now, looking at the current playoff picture, the Vikings have the 1 seed. The Lions and the Bears control 2 of the 3 wild card spots. And right now you have the Buccaneers and the Packers. They're tied at 4-2. So right now the Buccaneers, they're holding on to one of those wild card spots and holding off all 4 NFC North teams from making the playoffs. But yeah, and then of course in the other divisions you got the Falcons. They're at 4-2. Commanders 4-2. The Niners, they're at 3-3. They're back in first place. But yeah, so, the Bears, they're trending in the right direction. We got Terrell T in the chat. He said, should I start Williams tonight? All right, there's a couple of all right, so if you're talking about Javonte Williams, what are your other options besides Javonte Williams? I know, I was thinking Jamal Williams, but I'm like, if you're starting Jamal Williams, that means you got to be in like a 16 or 24 person league. So, but I would like to know what your other options are if if you're thinking about starting Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams he hasn't been great. I think he's had a couple of good games for fantasy purposes this year, but he really hasn't been that good. And the Broncos, they use different running backs too, which makes it harder. I'm trying to pull up the Bears' schedule here. So the Bears, they'll be going into the bye here in Week 7. Then they take on the Commanders out of the bye, which actually got moved to a late afternoon game, which, it's as it should. It looks like it's going to be a Nance Romo game, which is, you have the number 1 and number 2 overall picks going at it. So that's a great game to look forward to. Then they actually do have a light schedule. Well, outside the Commanders. You got the Cardinals then the following week. Then you got the Patriots at home. But then Oh, man. This is really going to determine the Bears' season. So from weeks 11 through 18, all right, so Terrell says quickly he's got Javonte, Mason, and the other running back for San Francisco. I would start. Well, then again, the 49ers are going up against the Chiefs. I would probably lean towards Mason. I think even though they're still going up against good defense. I mean, I think Jordan Mason can at least get a touchdown. He's been running the football well. I'd maybe lean towards starting him if he's healthy, because I know he got banged up last week. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, but I would lean towards starting Mason. And if that ends up not working out, don't blame me. So let's get back to the Bears' schedule, though. So after Week 10 against the Pats, home against the Packers, home against the Vikings, at the Lions, at the Niners, at the Vikings. So 3 straight road games. So 3 straight home games, then 3 straight road games against good teams, then home against the Lions. Actually, yeah, they play the Lions on Thanksgiving. Yeah, home against the Lions, home against the Seahawks, and then they finish up at Lambeau Field against the Packers. That is really going to determine their season. It's against the entire NFC North and 2 NFC West teams. And I know the Seahawks have been struggling recently, but you still got to respect them. We'll see where they're at by week 17. But that is a brutal end to their schedule. So they got to take advantage. So they have taken advantage of their last 3 opponents: a banged up Rams team, the Panthers, the Jaguars. But out of the bye against the Commanders, we'll see what that game brings. I would probably take the over in that game. But yeah, excited for that. But yeah, I mean the Bears, they're getting better and better. So I'm not expecting them to lose all those games, but it's going to be tough. I think they should beat the Cardinals and they should beat the Patriots. If they lose to the Commanders, then once they get into that brutal stretch, they're 6-3. So they'd be in good shape, and I'm not expecting them to get swept by their division. Right now I like the other teams in their division better at the moment, but they could definitely. I mean, the Lions struggle on Thanksgiving for some reason. Well, actually, nope, shouldn't say that. Recently, last year, against the Packers, they were the better team and they lost. The year before that, they played against the Bills. The Bills were the better team, but I mean, could this be the year the Lions finally win on Thanksgiving? Maybe, we'll see. But that'll be an interesting game. But yeah, no, they are looking like a much better team than early on in the season. But I want to get into the specifics of the game quickly. So they ended up defeating the Jaguars 35-16. The Jaguars, believe it or not, actually did score first. They were up 3-0, but then the Bears kind of took over the game. Caleb Williams hit Cole Kmet for a 31-yard touchdown in the second quarter. He did throw a pick. Jags didn't turn that into anything. Then he hit Cole Kmet again for a 2-yard touchdown. So it was 14-3. Jaguars fumbled. Evan Ingram fumbled in this game. That led to another touchdown. Caleb Williams connected with Keenan Allen. But then the Jags put together a touchdown drive. Trevor Lawrence hit Gabe Davis for a 21-yard touchdown, so that made it 21-10. But then the Bears immediately scored after that. And Caleb Williams found Keenan Allen for another touchdown. So that made it 28-10. Then Trevor Lawrence threw a pick, and that led to a 1-yard touchdown run by DeAndre Swift. Jags did score a touchdown. Gabe Davis another touchdown. So that made it 35-16. Bears did miss a field goal in the game, or in the fourth quarter. But that was that ended up being the final score. Trevor Lawrence went 23 of 35 for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Mac Jones came in the game for 1 play. They barely ran the ball. Dearness Johnson actually ended up being their leading rusher with 28 yards on the ground. Travis Etienne got banged up in this game. Evan Ingram, back from injury, 10 receptions, 102 yards. He had a good game outside of the fumble. Gabe Davis, 2 touchdowns in the game. Jaguars defense had 3 sacks. Caleb Williams, I showed you his numbers before. DeAndre Swift continues to play well. You look at the last several weeks. 93 yards against the Rams, 73 yards against the Panthers and a touchdown, 91 yards against the Jaguars and a touchdown as well. And, he's also being used in the passing game as well. Cole Kmet had 2 touchdowns. Keenan Allen had 2 touchdowns. Roma Dunze had 40 yards receiving. DJ Moore only had 20. But yeah, that's the thing. Bears defense also had 4 sacks. But that's the thing with this offense is, not everybody's going to have a good game. Players are going to take turns having good games each week. So, and it was Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet this week. But you're starting to see the Bears put it together. And I think the bye week is going to do wonders for this team. It's only going to make them better. And when they come out of the bye and take on the Commanders, and, it's going to be a tough game because that Commanders offense can put up points, but their defense is not very good. So, and the Bears do have a good defense. So, I think the Bears could win that game. And then you got 2 games that I think they should win. So you could either be, like I said, 6-4, or no, 6-3, or 7-2. And you'd be in good shape going into that tough part of your schedule. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Let me know what you think about Caleb Williams' performance. As for the Jags, I mean, this season continues to spiral out of control. I can't believe I gave this team 9 wins. They're not even going to get close to that this year. I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. I originally gave them 8 wins. I had them with the losing record, but they're not even going to get to 8, it looks like. And Doug Peterson, it looks like he could be fired before the season ends. And you started to see them, put something together at least. And you thought, like, okay, maybe, they could pull off a win here against the Bears, against a rookie quarterback. No, not the case. Not the case. And we have the absolute pleasure. So there are a lot of good games on Sunday. But to start us off on Sunday, we have the pleasure of watching the New England Patriots, who are 1-5, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are also 1-5. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Well, I mean, Drake May's playing, so, a mixed bag in his debut, but, it at least adds a little bit of something to the game. But, or maybe Mac Jones comes in, revenge game for Mac Jones. But, yeah, not really looking forward to it. But, we'll see what happens. But, let me know what you guys think about this game. We're going to take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about the Falcons and their win over the Panthers. They're starting to trend in the right direction. We'll get into that game when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.